Mill South. So we got agencies from across the country. That's awesome. We have one from, it looked like Mill, South Carolina too. I love that.
Very, very cool.
Hi, I'm Laura Davis. My photo's showing not me on a horse, but my daughter on a horse. I'm working remotely today, so no video. I'm with College Nannies in Minnesota, the Bay Area, Los Angeles, and San Diego. And I'm here with another College Nannies owner, Sue Cornish, who's in the Ohio, Indiana, and North Carolina areas.
Wow. You got a lot of territory covered there.
Well, when you live in Minnesota, you need to cover warm territory elsewhere.
Yeah, that's true. I feel a little guilty. I live in Pacific Northwest, but it's sunny and 50 degrees here. So the Washburn, excellent. Hey, Diane, right? Where's Diane? She's one of our new mentors. Am I thinking of the right person?
Yes, you
Yes,
are. Hello.
I am.
Hi,
Diana.
how are you?
Excellent. So we just started a mentor program, and Diane's one of our new mentors. So I'm super excited about it, which is the reason it popped into my head.
I'm thrilled to be a part of that. Yes. Nice to see you all.
Okay, Laura, so I think let's start.
Okay.
So, this is amazing. Like, we have 50 participants. This is crazy. So really, really excited to have you all here. Thank you for joining. So I'm going to present myself again for those who don't know me. I work for Angie Hire with Akash, the ones who know Akash. I work as a operations manager. So today I'll be hosting this webinar. So in case you have any questions, please post them on the chat, and we will leave a little bit of time at the end so Laura can answer to all your questions. So Laura, welcome to the webinar, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited about this. I love working with agencies, especially agencies that are excited about learning. So I'm really excited to be here. I start off all my sessions by saying that I really want to make sure that your questions are answered and that you get the information you need, or the information that you came for. And if I don't have the information right now, I will get it and get it back to you. So please list your questions in the chat. We will make sure to circle back around and touch base on your questions. And again, get that information to you. That is my priority as a trainer. I can tell you all kinds of things, but I want it to be real world helpful for you when you leave this, because I hate sitting for an hour and thinking, well, I didn't get my question answered. So I don't want to do that to you. And Danielle can be in charge of the questions. Daniel, sorry about that. I don't mind if you interrupt me during. It depends on how you want to do it and how many people we have and how many questions we have. So either during the presentation, if we're on a topic and somebody has a burning question, or at the end, whatever works best for you, Daniel. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me find it. I'm going to minimize all the people, so I won't be able to see your faces. The good thing is we have a co-host to be able to take care of all that for me. So today we're going to be talking about how to find the high quality nannies during the candidate shortage, because everybody and their brother is looking for these nannies. It's like, everybody's looking for some magic. So I want to first start off, because a lot of you may not know me. My introduction, very short. So I've been in the business for 30 years. I was a nanny, then I went to family assistant, then I became a trainer, consultant, and advocate. I work with all three segments of the industry, which gives me a great viewpoint of what's happening. So I work with nannies, parents, and agencies. I own Nanny Care Hub. My biggest presence is on Facebook. I actually do have a page or website called Nanny Care Hub, but most of my stuff is on Facebook. I created the A to Z Nanny contract, which hopefully all of you have heard of. And I do have one of the largest, most active nanny communities that I love. It's very active. We're very connected. So that's a really good part of my work. So let me go the other way. Okay, so, and I'm going to talk, again, I talk fairly fast. So if you've been with me before, you know that. I'll try and slow down a little bit. But again, I don't want to be talking into the air. I would love for this to be an interactive session. So if you do have a question, type it into the chat, and Daniel can interrupt me if he feels it's appropriate and ask the question. Otherwise, we can wait to the end, but during the presentation is fine too. And I'm probably not going to tell you anything new and like wow for the avenues of recruitment. The first one is social media. So social media is your page. So make sure your page is up to date and posting a lot of different things. So generally, agencies don't always post on their own pages. I know it gets really, really, really busy. And whether you're on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, you want to make sure that your page is up to date. The other thing is the Facebook job groups are huge. And all kinds of nannies are in there. There's entry-level nannies that you have no qualifications for being nannies, so I'm just going to call them caregivers. And then there's the high net worth nannies that are looking for those kinds of jobs. There's the travel nannies. There's the nannies who are NCSs too. There's the special need nannies. So nannies will cover all of their bases. So you should definitely be looking at the Facebook job groups in your area. Some of them are huge. Some of them obviously have people from other areas, but that
Laura, sorry, your mic is off. Sorry.
yes, you muted me with everybody else.
Sorry for that.
It's okay. It's okay. So there's a bunch of Facebook discussion groups that allow agencies in. So Nanny Council, I have one Nanny Care Cadre. There's a lot of nannies in those groups, but there's tons and tons of Facebook groups, and especially Facebook groups in your local areas. So you want to have a presence. You're not just on Facebook just looking for jobs, right? Posting jobs. You want to be on there. You want to be commenting. You want to be sharing your expertise. You want to be, talking with nannies, building that community. So make sure you're doing that. I know it seems like a time suck, but that's where your community is going to come from, or part of your community. Then there's Facebook jobs, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube, all those things. Now, I am horrible at social media, so I'm not going to give you any advice on how to best use those. I'm telling you that nannies are there, especially Instagram, and a lot of nannies are going to TikTok, and some agencies are on there. So those are the places that nannies are looking at. And there's also some really good information on YouTube. So you can use those avenues for education, but you also want to sprinkle in your job placements, your job search information. You have local nanny groups in pretty much every single area, even really small areas. And I'm telling you, those local nanny groups are your sweet spot. I work with many of the leaders. I have an actual Facebook group for just the leaders of those groups. And I probably have 100 people in that group, which tells you how many groups there are across the country. So those local groups are really, really great recruitment source. Then there's the Care Finder sites. Again, I'm sure you're all familiar with that. There's the industry sites. We have the INA job board. Honestly, not against if ever a nanny looking at that for whatever. INA just needs to bump it up. I'm sure it's a really good site. But for high net worth, there's also high net worth or high profile, high end nannies. There's also the domestic page, which covers not just nannies, but estate managers, cooks, chauffeurs, that kind of stuff. But a lot of nannies that are experienced look on that page, or at least peruse it. So you want to look on there and see what they're offering. Then the area sections of nationals, moms, dads, and parents groups. It used to just be moms groups. Now they've expanded. So you have Baby Center and Mom Central, things like that. They have local area groups that you can get into. Tons of nannies are in those mom groups. I can't tell you how many times I say, where did you get that resource? Or where did you get that from? It's from my mom's groups. And moms are nannies, just nannies who want to talk about childcare, talk about kids. Sorry, I'm trying to get rid of my toolbar here because it's covering my session. And then area specific mom groups. There's mom groups that are just specific to your particular area. I get a lot of inquests from parents, and I don't even know of these groups, and they say, oh, I heard about you through, and they'll tell me a local group. And I'm like, okay, that's great that I'm being mentioned on there. I'm not even advertising on there. So again, you want to that. or if you area, if you have an agency in the right area, is pretty popular with nannies. And then local neighborhood groups and boards. Again, moms participate in those, parents participate in those, but so do nannies. Then there's childcare organizations. Pretty much every childcare organization is going to have a job board. The biggest ones are NACY, which is the National Association for the Education of Young Children. Then there's an organization for family care providers. Family care is care that's in someone else's home, like an in-home daycare is what we used to call it, but it's the official name is family care. So a lot of those are closing down, right, because of COVID. So a lot of those people are really experienced, really educated, may even have an accreditation through that organization and are closing their centers. So if you're looking for somebody that may not have nanny experience, but has other really great childcare experience, those childcare organizations can be really, really helpful. Child-related blogs and sites. So anything that talks about kids or sells a really, really great product on kids. If you want to do some advertising, that's a good place. Nannies are all over those sites. Job fairs, local nanny leaders and influencers. I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. Then your current placements and those that have applied but not placed. Those really are gold for you. So I know a lot of agencies don't take as much advantages of those as they could. So definitely want to look at those for avenues of recruitment. And if anybody has things else that they would like to share, please put that in the chat. So peer-to-peer learning is a wonderful thing. So I'm sure you have ideas that aren't on here that would be helpful to other agencies. So why don't nannies use agencies? So there's a lot of nannies out there, really good nannies who don't use agencies. Now, before I start this, I want to say I am not talking about a particular agency, and please don't take this personally. It's really important information for you to know so you can use it effectively to promote your agency. Because I am one of those people who always put the caveat of not all agencies are great. Make sure you check them out before you start using them for both parents and nannies. So a lot of nannies are new, right? Or newer. So back in the day when I came in, everybody used an agency because that was the only option. A lot of nannies, a whole new generation of nannies, and they're not new anymore because they've been in the industry 5-10 years. They've only used care.com, Sitter City, places like that. They came in with those care sites, so they don't even understand how agencies work or that that's a real option for them. So they're not necessarily against agencies. They're just doing what they know by going back to care.com or doing their own self-search. So they don't know about the option. A lot of nannies have a misunderstanding of how agencies work because what they take away is what everybody says. And a lot of people don't talk positively about agencies. So they think agencies are going to charge them money to be placed. You have to have 15 years of experience to work with an agency. There's all kinds of misconceptions out there around how agencies work. Agencies overall have a bad reputation with nannies. Again, please don't take it personally. There have been a lot of agencies who have not provided great services to nannies, and nannies remember that. It's like, you know, they will remember something 15 years ago. So they can be your best friend or they can be your worst enemy when it comes to service. So overall, agencies don't have a great reputation. And so when people start talking about agencies, you're going to get a couple of comments that say, oh, they're great, they're really helpful. And then you're going to get 15, 20 comments that say, oh, I would never use an agency. This is my experience. And people extrapolate from that, right? One agency, it's the whole bad apple thing. So you have to understand that and you have to work against that tide. So don't pretend like, oh, well, that doesn't affect me because I'm a great agency. It does affect you, I guarantee. Or you have a local agency in your area that has a bad reputation. So that, again, is going to spread over to you because nannies in your area are going to be like, nope, don't want to use the agencies because of one agency. So again, you have to recognize what that is and you have to work against it. Poor communication. This is the #1 complaint from nannies about agencies. I filed an application and I never heard back from them. Even when you say you're not going to hear back from us unless you're appropriate for the job, that's poor communication. Poor communication throughout the placement process, the vetting process. I left a message, I sent them an email, I sent them a text. I never heard back from them. Or it took me, 10 weeks for them to hear back from me. And then it was just because they wanted something from me. Poor communication is the #1 complaint of nannies. You have an owner or staff lacking knowledge of the industry. Again, people come to me because I have the agency nanny contract. I talk a lot about industry standards, what your contract should include, how to negotiate, what's guaranteed hours, what's the standard for vacation, how do we deal with COVID. I answer all those questions and talk about that a lot. And what I hear is, my agency doesn't know any of that. My agency told the family the wrong thing about guaranteed hours. My agency doesn't know what they're talking about. There is a lot that goes into understanding the nuances of our industry. So it is really important that you understand what's happening and not just, oh, nannies or families need to pay taxes. You really need to take a deep dive into the employment laws and into the standards and understand. You need to be the authority in your area. So that is a big one. Nanny agencies lack information. And then you fail to educate the family on all those things that you should know, or you provide false or misleading information to the family. So you say, well, guaranteed hours, a lot of nannies like them, but it's okay if you don't offer them. Because families tell that to nannies. Families say, oh, well, the agency said I didn't have to provide that. Or the agency said I could pay taxes only half of your income. Or the agency said, so that's the reason nannies know or assume that the family is telling the truth, and agencies will get a bad rap. So again, you need to have the knowledge, but you also need to share it with your families. And not all families are going to agree, and not all families are going to be thrilled about it. And I'm sure that's the reason a lot of agencies don't do it, right? They're trying to keep clients, but it really does bite you when it comes to recruitment of nannies. And yes, there's a whole second page of this one. So nannies don't believe that you have their best interest at heart. Again, not you in particular, but agencies. And it's because of all those things, right? Poor communication, lack of education, lack of helping them educate the family. So they really need to feel like my agency has got my back. You don't advocate for the nanny with the family, especially during the negotiation process. So the family comes in and says, the nanny has her list of things, and the family has their list of things. And there's not a fair and balanced split between them. It comes out where the family is getting 90% of what they want, and the nanny's only getting 10%. And the nanny calls the agency and says, hey, this seems really unfair. I'm not really liking the direction this goes. And the agency doesn't back her. The agency doesn't advocate for her with the family. It's too hard with no added benefit. Some agency applications are so hard and so long. I remember this being a nanny. It took forever. And especially now, if every agency says, well, we're only going to contact you if you're appropriate for this job. So as a nanny, you're thinking, great, I'm going to spend 3 hours filling out this application and it's going to go nowhere. So where's the benefit for me? Where's the add-on? Why would I do this? So it's too hard with no added benefit. And again, the application process is too hard and time consuming. And the bottom line is, a lot of nannies feel like they can do a better job of finding the next family, especially those experienced nannies, especially the ones that have used agencies. They've left them because of all these reasons, and they're like, I can do this better myself. So those are all the reasons nannies don't use agencies. And again, not talking about your agency, but if you can take this information, I'm telling you, and flip it and address these issues with nannies, they will come to you because nobody else does that. And so the few agencies that do really get a strong and loyal following. They get a following in other areas. And this is the other piece too. So some of the larger groups. So even if you're not talking to nannies, you're not supporting nannies or helping educate nannies in your area, when somebody comes into the cadre, which is the Facebook group I have, and says, so I live in Ohio and I wanted to know if there's any good agencies. If there's been an agency that has been, that has advocated and has been pro nanny in one of those groups, a nanny from California will say, oh, this agency in Ohio. And one from Minnesota will go, yeah, I've heard great things about that agency. So nannies from all over will follow you if you're loyal. And they will promote you and suggest you, even if you are not in their particular area. Nannies are very, very loyal beings. So you can really use that. You can leverage that. Okay, So why do they come to you? These are things that you want to know and you want to promote. So you have better jobs. That's the thing that everybody talks about. Oh, if you want to have a better job, if you're complaining about employers who don't pay, $10 an hour, you should go to an agency because they have better jobs. They're going to vet their families. And what do they mean by better jobs? They mean a competitive rate and benefits. So they're looking to you to have a competitive rate in your particular area, standard benefits for every level of nanny, and more benefits depending on how experienced they are. So they're looking for you, again, to advocate for those things to those families. Then they're looking for educated families, families that understand guaranteed hours, paid vacation, paid holidays, COVID pay, what kind of environment they need to create. So those kinds of things, they're looking for educated families. They're looking for an agency to do that, because otherwise the nanny has to do that, right? And she doesn't want to. She doesn't want to have to go back and forth with this family about why there is such a thing as guaranteed hours and why that family should provide it. She wants a family to understand that and come in ready to go. They've had a positive past experience with you. That usually doesn't extrapolate. Usually it has to be with your particular agency, because even if they've had a positive past experience with one agency, that whole agencies are bad thing is pretty strong in the nanny world. So they're going to look to another agency to prove themselves. Personal or group recommendations are really, really, really important. Again, in a group, and that means all those Facebook groups with nannies in them. If somebody says, I've worked with this agency and it's really good, or yes, I've heard really great things about this agency, those mean a lot to nannies. You're responsive, right? So it's not the poor communication. It's not any of those things. You are responsive, not only in communication to what their needs are and what they're telling you, that you're going to personally advocate for them. Again, they're going to feel like they have somebody in their corner. They have somebody watching their back. And then it's less time, stress, and just hassle, right? It's easier. Even though agency applications are really hard, it is so crazy to be out in the rest of the world and trying to find jobs through Facebook and Care. And believe me, Care has a horrible reputation in people. I don't know any nanny that says, yay, I love Care, but they still go on there because they know families are on there, and not just cheap families, because there are families on there, surprisingly to me, every day that are paying well, that are offering good benefits. So there are those sites, but they're so hard. You can go through 500 bad families before you get to a couple of good families. So you can provide them a much more streamlined process. Okay, I'm going to take a break, take a drink. Any big questions? Any burning questions here?
Laura, we have a question from Rachel. I think it's for everyone, but you have some insights on this. She's asking what everybody is currently doing for COVID pay.
So COVID, yes. So let me talk about mine and everybody else can jump in. So with COVID pay, I am now recommending my clients to do 2 to 4 weeks of paid COVID time off, paid leave. And that includes everything. So it includes if you're actually ill with COVID, but it also includes all those isolation times, because that's where nannies are losing the money. They're not losing the money when they get sick. They're losing the money with isolation. So I'm asking for 2 to 4 weeks, and I'm getting pushback, but I'm also getting the majority of people on board because this is the thing. Nannies are looking for families who are going to provide that. So if a family isn't providing it, that nanny is going to quickly start looking to jump ship, especially when she comes back after 2 weeks of no pay because she has to be in isolation for 10 days or for 14 days. So even though the CDC has now recommended 5 days and then 5 days with a mask, most families are not comfortable with that, especially if they have kids in the house that are not vaccinated. So CDC is talking about business places where they're all adults and they all could be vaccinated. We're talking about homes where you have children who, under 5 cannot be vaccinated. So that's a very, very different thing. So most families are still requiring 10 days. And you have a nanny that goes 10 days without pay. She comes back and she recognizes that could happen again and again and again. She's going to start looking for another position, or she's going to start pushing. So That's what I tell my families. And it's no longer, COVID's no longer an emergency. So I redid the whole contract because now it's just part of our employment relationship. So just vacation, holidays, start offering COVID pay. And of course, nobody likes it. No family wants to pay more money. But it's a reality. It's our new reality. So that's what I'm telling my people. So feel free, anybody else, to jump in and share what you're telling your people.
Laura,
Yeah.
we have more questions here. Okay, so what kind of messaging will you suggest putting on a nanny application to help reassure them that it's worth their time?
So you need to tell them what they're going to get out of it. And you need to really acknowledge and just talk to where they're at. So acknowledge it is, you can say something like, we really appreciate that you're busy, because nannies are working probably 50 hours a week, right? And then they're coming home and doing these really long applications. So as long as you acknowledge the time and effort they're putting into it, and as long as you really outline what the next steps are going to be. So from this application, and we're going to review it within the next 48 hours, 72 hours, 5 days, whatever your timeline is, let them know that, and let them know how you're going to respond to them. So even if it's not an individual response, you need to make sure that you're at least sending an auto response that says, we've received your application. Thank you so much. So many times they're like, did you get it? Did you not get it? Do I need to apply again? You need to tell them if they need to apply for every single job. Because what happens is they're going to apply to your agency. They're not going to hear anything, right? Because you're only going to respond to those that meet the criteria for that particular job. So they're going to apply for a job, and they're not going to know if you got it or you didn't get it, because nobody trusts tech. Nothing against Engine Hire. I'm sure they're very reliable. But nannies, they want to know, right? This is important. This is their livelihood. This isn't something of, oh, I'm just going to ask you a question. This is them getting a job. So this is the top of their priority list. And, it's really stressful. So the very first thing is you need to let them know that you got the application. But do they need to apply again if they see another job? Does that one application cover every job that you're in? So if they see a great job, do they need to contact you and say, hey, I want that one again, or I want that one? Do they need to apply again? Are you going to hold their application for, 10 months or a year or however long, and contact them if another job comes in? What do they need to do? Because what happens is they go in limbo. And as you know, and this is not a nanny thing, everybody will spin out into the worst scenario. They never got my application, or they hated my application, or, this other job is perfect for me, but I'm not going to apply to it because I never heard from them before. So they'll think of all kinds of horrible things. So letting them know you appreciate their time, letting them know you appreciate their experience, and letting them know next steps, and that you are their partner in this. This isn't them coming in as a nanny where the other families come in as clients. I talk about clients equally. So I have nanny clients and I have parent clients. And whatever verbiage you use, you need to treat them that way and talk about them that way. Does that help? Because I can't see anybody's faces.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Okay, another question from Lisa. Laura, will you further explain what nannies feel as a hard agency application? I think it's a little bit related to the.
Yeah, so it needs to be relevant. Applications often ask things that, and I know why you're doing it. You're doing it for screening, right? But they will often ask things that you should be doing, or the nanny feels you should be doing or could be doing in the interview. Or you're talking to basic nannies. So if you ask the questions like, what does a well-rounded day look like? Or, you know what I mean? Things, really, really basic questions. Well, if you're talking to a nanny who's been a nanny for 20 years, if that's your thing, if that's your target, well, we've been answering that question for 20 years. Or why don't you just talk to us in person? Take 15 minutes and talk to us. So the one thing is, and I have an extra actual slide on, let me see if I can find it. Application and screening process. And I can go back to the other ones. So don't worry, we're not going to miss it. The first thing is responsiveness, what I just said. You have to let them know that you've received it and where they are in the process. They need to know that. Do passive screening so nannies don't waste their time. So let your job description really, really speak to what you're looking for, but also your website should not be generic. If you have a niche, if you're looking for really experienced nannies and they need to have not just the nanny experience, but they need to have a certain attitude, they need to have certain experiences, like they need to be ready for international travel, they need to be swimmers, they need to be whatever. You need to tell them that up front, because there's nothing worse than filling out a really long application and then the agency saying, oh, well, we require all of our nannies to be drivers, or we require all of our nannies to travel with families, or we require all of our nannies to do whatever. And they're thinking, well, if you would have told me that up front, I wouldn't have filled out this application. So please put that information on the website, and that will screen out those that don't meet your criteria or don't want that type of job. And it will pull in those that do, that like that vibe, that read that description and go, yeah, I have that attitude. That's the kind of family I want to work for. And you should generally know that. So the attitude for the family and the nanny is not something particular to one job. All your nannies should overall have a certain vibe. All your nannies should overall, and families overall, should have a certain vibe. And I'm just going to use Adventure Nannies as a really great example. I don't think they're on here, but they are very, very good about talking about their vibe, their, the type of person that they're looking for. And you should really have that as clear cut as they do. And there's other agencies that do that too. And I'm sure many of you do that, but I should be able to read your website and get a sense of who you're looking for, what kind of person you're looking for. Make it user-friendly, so make it easy. Don't ask, there are still nannies that ask, or agencies that have you fax thing in, or if you don't have DocuSign, if you want them to sign things, don't have them print it out, sign it, scan it, and have to send it back to you. So if you're asking them to sign something, have a document signing process in your application. It needs to be fast, quick, and easy. And then lose those unnecessary steps. If they have a resume, and most of if you're looking for, the title of this candidates, they're going to have a resume. Don't make them fill out, okay, tell me your job history. You should be able to send you that resume, everything that way. They should fill out another form that lists their job history and their education and all those kinds of things. If they have a resume, boom, they attach it and it should be gone. So look at your process and say, where can I cut out unnecessary steps? And that may be pulling in more tech. There is a solution, a tech solution for everything at this point. So autoresponders for emails and, software to be able to parse those resumes. And there's just stuff for everything. I get lost in the tech, but I know it's out there and you can use it effectively, even if you're a one-person shop. And again, make it time efficient. So make it as short as possible. And if you're asking them to talk to you or to meet you, make sure you're offering evening or weekend hours, because nannies work and nannies are rarely going to take off work to go look for a job. We just find that a little unethical, and it puts our employers in a bind. So we're really not going to do that. So if you say we have 2 evenings a week when we offer, Zoom interviews, or we're happy to meet you on the weekend, then that they're going to be like, okay, they understand it. They get me. Clear communication around next steps. I've talked about that over and over again. And then treat the nanny as a client, just as you would treat the parent as a client. So if you do those things, and again, your resume or your website really needs to speak differently to parents and nannies. Just like your website, I'm sure, is really selling on the parent side. Usually on the nanny side, it's here's our application, right? You need to sell to that nanny just as much as you're selling to that parent. So your website needs to reflect that, and not just here's our application. Any other questions around that?
We have another question from Ali, but I think that what you just said answers to her question. Ali, if you feel that we have an answer to your question, can you post again in the chat? And we will, I don't know, ask Laura or to get into more details of your question. So,
Okay.
Laura, let's continue then. And if they have more questions, I will interrupt you and we can answer more.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you.
So nanny leaders and influencers. I'm a big person about these support groups and these nanny influencers, only because I work with them all the time. And I hear what they say behind the scenes. I hear what they, or I see what they do behind the scenes. Sorry, I have a puppy. So look at your local nanny groups. Now there's two different kinds. There's the in-person kind, and then there's the online groups. There's some online groups that are geographically focused, so they may be just in your area, but they're just online. They don't meet in person. So they're huge. There's lots of nannies in them. And then some in-person things will come out of that, but mostly they're online. Then you have the affiliate of Domestic Workers Alliance. A lot of agencies feel like the domestic workers don't have anything to offer or don't have enough in common. They have some really, really great caregivers in those groups. So please do not write them off because they don't fit your idea of what your ideal nanny is. There's some really amazing nannies in there. The local domestic workers group. So you have the affiliate of Domestic Workers Alliance. That's the national group. You have those affiliates. And then most areas, especially if they're larger nanny communities, will have local, separate, individual domestic workers groups. Then you're gonna have local influencer. And I use influencer a little bit different. This is not the cool person on Insta who's gonna, you know, do whatever with your brand. I don't even really get that whole thing. Can you tell I'm not really a social media person? But you have local influencers, meaning those are the people that other nannies come to for advice, or when they need to figure out what agency to go with, or they need to run a job by them. Those are the people, when you go to the playground, all the nannies collect around them and they talk to, and they're the sort of the mothering nannies or the fun nannies that they can connect. Oh, I have a friend that you're really going to like. Those are the influencers who know everybody in your nanny community. Those are the ones you want to talk to, not the insta cool people who are going to support your brand. Those are fun too, but that's a whole different type of influencer. There are nannies in every single community who are the connection, the glue between nannies in the area. And those are the ones that you want to really connect with. The local informal mentors. Again, there are people who just sit around. They're going to take a nanny's call at 10 o'clock at night because she's struggling with her family. Or they're going to sit around the park and they're going to just dole out advice to all the younger nannies there. Or they're going to people who say, oh, I have these great resources. Let me look them up and email them to you. So they're mentors. They're not in a mentoring program, but they're mentoring other nannies, and not just new nannies. Experienced nannies are going to go to these people too, because maybe it's something they haven't dealt with, or maybe they just want a sounding board. So these are the information keepers, the advice keepers in your area. The local ambassador of INA. So the local ambassador of INA, outside of the INA stuff, is usually one of those local mentors, those local influencers, right? They tend to know a ton of people. So even if you're not in INA or promoting INA, you want to check in and touch base with them. And I would say a lot of them are having local meetings. It's a very smart thing that INA has started to do. Touch base with those local ambassadors because they generally know that area very well. Niche nanny groups. So there's so many, there's hundreds, maybe thousands of nanny groups, but there's niche ones. So there's seasoned nannies. There used to be vintage nannies, you know, so older nannies, that's what those are. There's nannies over 30. There's nannies that are experienced, have like 10 years experience. There's NCSs, there's nannies with special needs. There's nannies for divorced families. There's a group for pretty much every single thing. So if you are looking, say if you have a divorced couple coming in and you're looking specifically for a nanny who has experience with that, touch base with the administrator of that group, right? And say, this is a position I have. You do a great job of running this group. And I know these are smart, savvy nannies in this group. Do you have anybody that might fit this job description? Right? So you don't need to be pushy about it. You can just say, hey, I have this job, because nannies want to help. That's the thing. Nannies love to help. So if they have somebody in their job, in their group who's looking for a job that matches what you're looking for, they're going to go like, yeah, let me talk to this person. And if she's interested, I'll have her contact your agency. Can you send me the job description? So before you reach out, make sure you have that job description ready to go. So niche nannies can be really, again, really helpful. So for special needs, again, there's a niche group for every single thing. And again, I can't see the bottom one because it said, there we go. So cultivate relationships with a diverse group of people. Do not limit yourself to a certain type of nanny or to a certain circle of friends or anything like that. The nanny industry is huge, and your local nanny industry is huge. It's much, much, much bigger than what you see on the surface. It really is like that iceberg that everybody uses for a million different things. You're probably seeing the very tip of that iceberg above the water, and there's all that other stuff underneath, which is the reason you need to throw that net wide when you're recruiting. So again, domestics, people, nannies, people, nannies, oh, they know everybody and their brother, or nanny moms who may not be working anymore, but they still know a ton of nannies, right? Those nannies are their friends, so they stay in touch. So make sure you're reaching out to a diverse group of people and not limiting yourself to certain nannies in your area. Okay, so connecting with those leaders and influencers. So the first thing you want to do is listen. The first thing is not to try and get them to fill your jobs for you, which is what everybody's doing right now. Everybody's desperate. Every agency is reaching out to every single nanny they know and saying, please send me anybody you know looking for a job. The first thing you want to do is listen, learn their concerns and challenges, because they will tell you if you ask the questions. Then support their causes. So you want to listen, you want to really tap in, because there's things that happen across the nanny industry, and then there are things that happen in certain areas. There's certain concerns and challenges to specific areas. So things that are happening in San Francisco are not happening, in Boston or St. Louis or Chicago. So listen to your local people around what their concerns and challenges is, especially if you are in an area that is a new nanny area. So Boston's established. There's been nannies there forever. California, pretty much the same thing. But if you're in a newer area where you're just maybe a new agency and there's not a lot, you don't see a lot of visible nannies in the community, there's going to be very certain challenges that come with that. So a lot of parent education has to come with that. A lot of community outreach has to come with that. So listen to your local people about that. Support their causes. Pretty much all their causes are trainings and employer resources in education. So local trainings, if they're not putting them on, volunteer to put them on. Nannies love trainings. And that's one of the great ways to get them to come together. And don't limit it to just the nannies in your agency. Again, you're trying to throw that net wide, invite every single nanny in that community. National Nanny Training Day is coming up quickly. It's in April. This year, Sue is doing some in-person events and some online things. You should be in that, whether your area is doing in person or not. You should be part of that. But especially if your area is doing an in-person event, you should be part of that. And if you have enough nannies that are willing to do an in-person event but don't have the time or the resources, volunteer to do one. Believe me, I started National Nanny Training Day. You can do one super, super cheap. So volunteer to do one, even if you get 10 nannies to come in person. That's still, again, those people know people who know people who know people. So it's the ripple effect. You can offer scholarships to childcare conferences. So there's Nanny Palooza, which is my favorite. There's INA. Outside of nanny industry, there's NACY, which is the mother of all conferences. But all of NACY's, every state and every local area has an affiliate for NACY. So you'll have, I'm in Washington, you'll have the Washington NACY affiliate, and then you'll have the King County NACY affiliate. So, and NACY's crazy cheap, right? Because childcare providers outside of the nanny industry have no money. So offer a scholarship. Make sure you're on their mailing list. Make sure you know what's coming to town and get connected with them. Community organizing. So that's going to, if you're connecting with the domestic workers, one of their needs is always going to be community organizing, and it's always beneficial for you to be part of that. Employer education and resources are huge, because nannies want employers to know what in the heck is going on in the nanny industry. And it's more authoritative coming from you than it is from nannies, even nanny leaders. So they want you to do that. They want you to educate those employers for them, or at least come together with the influencers and industry leaders and do a joint effort for employers. And then nanny education and resources. It's just as frustrating for us when we get caregivers in the industry who, oh, I didn't have anything better to do, or, oh, I needed a job, so I decided to be a nanny. We hate that just as much as you do. So come together with your local people and offer trainings for new nannies, for people just coming into the industry. It's really, really helpful to you, but it's also really helpful to them too. So developing those relationships, invest in long-term relationships. Again, this is not, I have a job to fill yesterday, so please, 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 please help me. You want to promote your agency overall. You're not going to be talking just about your jobs. Nannies really don't like that. So you know this is sales 101, right? You want to promote your agency overall. The jobs will come second. Get reviews and testimonials. It is amazing to me how many agencies do not ask for that, right? You do for clients, your family clients, but I go to site after site after site, and I rarely see a really good review or testimonial from a nanny recently, not 15 years ago, who's used that agency. So make sure you're asking for those. Make sure you're getting those on your website, because that makes a huge difference. Get video ones if you can, because we like to see who we're, when we're listening to that, it has a much, much bigger impact. Ask for referrals and then give referral fees, right? And if you have swag, nannies love swag. So if you have a bag, if you have, oh my gosh, decals, they love those decals they stick on their cars. So anything, the nanny pride thing is the new big thing, right? So it used to be, I'm going to give you a cup, I'm going to give you a mug. Now it's nanny pride, whether it be a t-shirt or a pin or a card or any of that kind of stuff. Nanny pride is where it's at. And then do social events. I know it's really hard with COVID, but do them anyway. You can do them outside. So even if it's a small, we're only going to have people that are vaccinated. And believe me, you're not going to tick off people if you just say vaccinated. Most nannies are vaccinated. And kids, we're going to do it in the park. We're going to keep social distance, whatever. You can do these things safely. And A, people love it because their nannies are very social and they love getting their kids together with other kids. But B, everybody is craving connection right now. So offering that, even if you limit it to 5 people or 7 people or 8 people rather than have a huge event, that can be really powerful for nannies. And again, it gets them loving your agency. So we went through the application screening process. So before we jump to this, which is the last piece, any other questions, Daniel? How are we doing?
No questions, but if you want, we can make a quick break and see if someone has any questions. So
okay.
Feel free to post on the chat.
Okay, perfect.
Questions.
So you can, I'll just jump into this, but feel free to post. And if anybody does post, Daniel will interrupt me. I have no problem with that. Sure. Okay, so marketing your agency. So I spoke to this a little bit. Have a website and community presence that speaks to how you fix the common nanny jobs problems and job searching and placement. The number one thing is better jobs. How do you offer better jobs? Tell them that. Don't assume nannies know this, because they don't. One of the biggest selling points when I'm talking to nannies is your repeat clients. Your repeat clients are going to come in, right? You're going to get a job, the nanny's left, and they're coming back to your agency. A lot of times in a good agency, that's never going to hit the job board, because you're going to look at the nannies that you have registered and you're going to say, oh, wait a second, Susie would be perfect for this job, so let me put her up for that. So a lot of times really good jobs never hit the outside market. So let nannies know that not only do you need their application, but you're going to be representing them and working for them and advocating for them and those sort of hidden jobs that come in. But in general, what's your vetting process? What are your expectations for your jobs? Do you require a certain salary or wage? Do you require a certain, amount of benefits? Do you require all your families to pay taxes? Don't assume nannies know what you mean by better jobs. Start defining that on your website. And when you're talking in these nanny groups, or however you're connecting with nannies in the community, make sure you're talking about that. Talk about your user-friendly application vetting and placement process. It should be all of those things. So talk about that. What does that mean to you? What can the nanny expect when they come to your site and have to do your application? Talk about how you vet families. We had a really interesting discussion the other day on Nanny Care Hub. I don't know, I do daily tips. You should go read them. And we were talking about vetting families. And it's let me tell you, the Nanny Care Hub daily tips are a really good way to get a pulse of the nanny community. But anyway, we were talking about vetting families and background checks and things like that. And a couple of agencies popped in and said, oh, well, we go to our family's home to make sure that they're a good family. Well, if you're doing that, you should be telling people. But then surprisingly, some people popped in, some agencies popped up and said, we do background checks in our families. And a couple of them, no, one actually said, we require a reference from the previous nanny or previous housekeeper or whatever, or if they haven't had that, then friends or family, but we require a reference from the family. And all of us, including me, were like, what? Tell me more about that. So if you're doing something like that, if you are really vetting as opposed to just looking at their application and taking their fee, then you need to start talking about that, because family or nannies are so annoyed that families aren't vetted like they are. So really sit down and think about all the ways that you're unique, all the ways that you solve these nanny problems, and then start talking and promoting that. If you educate your families and advocate for your nannies, talk about how you do that. If you have a welcome guide for your families that includes things about what's the competitive rate and guaranteed hours and paid time off and the type of environment they need to create and yada, 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 tell your nannies that this is what you provide, not just your nannies, tell nannies in general. And then make sure you're supporting them through the contract negotiation. Let them know what they can expect from you. Again, if you're telling all your families you have to pay taxes, let them know that. So don't have these hidden gems from your agency that you're not, letting shine in the world. Tell everybody and anybody who's listening how great you are at working with these families and working with these nannies. And then also after placement support. Huge complaint from nannies is once they got the fee, I never heard from them again. I hear that so often. So make sure you actually are doing after placement support, and then make sure you're telling them what that looks like. So we're going to go, this is our again, next steps. So this is our process. This is what you can expect from us. This is how we're going to support you through vetting the family, through vetting you, the negotiation process. And then if you're placed with our agency, this is what you can expect from us after placement. So next step isn't just the very next thing you're doing. When you're talking next steps, you should outline everything that you're doing and how you're going to support that nanny and advocate for her all the way through the process. Just making sure I didn't skip anything on that. And then bring yourself into your agency branding. I talked a little bit about this when we were talking about what type of nanny you're looking to place. So who are you? What are your values? First off, you should have who you are. It's amazing to me when I go to a nanny agency site and I cannot find the people behind the agency. Right then, I absolutely will not work with you. If you are not transparent about who you are, then I will not work with you and I will never recommend you, because transparency is huge in our industry because it goes into trust. But talk about who you are and what is your story, and not just how I decided to open a nanny industry or nanny agency, but what are your values that you're bringing to this? What are your goals, and how are you bringing those goals and values to life in your agency every day? So when I look at you, or when I see your agency's name, I should think of you, the owner, and the staff that you hire, because the staff that you hire should reflect you. But I should have a certain feel, a certain vibe that comes to mind when I think of you. If I don't, you're not marketing that well enough. Don't try to please everybody. Again, you have to figure out who you are and what you're trying to market. You cannot place every single kind of nanny, because that isn't just how it works. Unless you're an agency out there that has, I don't know, a staff of 50 and you have 100 nannies or 100 families on board, you can't please everybody. You can't do special needs and divorced parents and single parents and high net worth and high profile and then entry level nanny. You can't do everything. So what are you doing in particular, and what are you doing particularly well? That's what you have to focus on. Then become the authority of all things nannies, especially in your local area, and not just the taxes and all that contract stuff. You need to know that, absolutely. But what else is going on? Who are the people who are the influence in your area? What's the favorite nanny park? How are nannies getting together? Is there a group that you can send people to? You know what I mean? what are some families that, you know, have not worked out really well for nannies that you're not going to work with? You need to become the local authority. You need to become the person that everybody goes to when they have a question, especially the newer nannies, not just newer to the job, but maybe newer to the area. Get involved in the industry. Sorry, my dog's climbing up, so you might be able to see her. And your community. Just get involved in your local nanny community, but also your other community. Do a volunteer project, you know, again, have those nanny events. Work with your community around being the voice of the nanny industry for your local area. Get those reviews and testimonials. I'm telling you, those are really important. And I see very few of them. Then jobs without being obnoxious. There's nothing worse than when I never hear from you, and then all of a sudden you have a hot job that you can't find a candidate for, and I'm your best friend. No, I don't work that way, and neither does any of the nannies I know. So if you want to have a relationship with your nannies, develop the relationship, stay in touch with them throughout the year. For the influencer nanny leaders, know their birthday, know the things that are important to them, touch base and say, how are you doing? What's going on? How can I help you? How can I support you? And then when you have jobs to promote, and everybody does right now, then you have the relationship to send them that promotion, send them that job and say, hey, do you have anybody? And it's nice, and they will send people, but remember, referrals are really nice too. So if you're paying a referral fee, let them know. And even if you're not paying a referral fee generally, right? So you're not making it public, give them a referral fee or send them a gift card or say, you know what? I know you can't accept a gift, a personal gift or personal money because you run a support group and that feels unethical to you. Most nannies, if you run a group, will not accept a personal fee from your agency, but offer that scholarship or say, I'd love to make a donation to your favorite charity in your name. Do something for that leader that is not just giving them a referral fee, but that is meaningful to them. Or say, you guys have helped me so much in this group. What can I do? I'd love to maybe sponsor a National Nanny Training Day or another kind of training or whatever the case is, but do something for them. Even if they say no to the referral fee. Okay, I think we're at Q&A. All right. I'm going to stop the share so I can come back to the group. Let's see what time it is.
Okay, Laura, thank you.
I know.
Yeah, we already have been an hour, but I don't know,
It's
like,
okay.
if someone has any questions, I don't know if you want to turn off your mic and ask the question, or you want to post it in the chat. It's okay. I think we don't have.
Yeah, I'm not on a time thing. So if you have a question, again, if you have a question, I want to make sure it's answered before you leave. So please post it. Don't worry about the time piece.
Okay, Laura. So okay.
Oh.
You're reading the chat, right? Or
Yeah. Do you have a range of referral dollars offered to nannies and their referrals? Honestly, it really depends on the agency. I mean, I've seen referral fees up to $1,000 lately. It's crazy. It's just nuts. People are just throwing money at the problem. So if your agency can't afford that, because who can? I've seen, honestly, for the bigger agencies, I've seen $500. That's what it's coming in at. But some of the agencies are offering even more than that, plus a signing bonus. So if you can't offer that, right? Because if you're a small agency and you're a small shop, then offer what you can. So I would say $100, $200. But again, if you're talking to a local support group leader, they're not going to be able to take a personal referral, or they shouldn't, they won't, because it's unethical, it's unprofessional, because they're representing the group, right? They're not representing their individual person. So do something else. Yeah, so you can offer, it's honestly, the money is great, but it really is more of the appreciation of their time and energy. So again, offering, or pick their brain. Say, I'd love to take you to Starbucks and buy you a cup of coffee and pick your brain. Or again, offering something to go to their favorite charity is, people love that. Nannies love that. So you don't have to spend a lot of money to get referrals. They care more about who you are in relationship to them than the money they're giving you, because everybody is offering them money, right? So if you offer them something else, that's what's going to stand out.
Okay, Laura, we have here another question from Julia. You say that it's important to let nannies know what you do for them and how you vet families, etc. How do you feel that this is best done? On website, I often get the comment that too much text there is off-putting. Social media post or other means?
I think all of them, And you can do your website, you can do bullet points. So you can just be how we vet our families, right? And just have a bullet point list. You don't have to go into a really long narrative. So not a lot of agencies go to homes. So if you're one of the agencies that goes into their homes, say that. If you run a background check, whatever you do, make sure that you're listing it. And it could just be bullet points. It doesn't have to be a huge amount of text, but also make it in social media. Make a little meme about, what is a good agency? How does a good agency vet their families? We do. And then list those bullet points out, because I guarantee most agencies are not doing that. And that's, I tap in, and that's what I ask when I talk to an agency before I refer them. So how do you vet your families? So use every avenue that you have. So what information should you, I missed it. I clearly can't read fast enough. What information you provide family without guaranteed hours? Oh, this is such a hot topic anymore. You should let them know what it actually is and how it's going to play out in the real world. So guaranteed hours is pretty simple to say. Oh, it's not your nanny's going to get paid 52 weeks a year, by the way. That's not what guaranteed hours are. Because if the nanny takes off for some reason, she doesn't get paid. So guaranteed hours is if the family chooses not to use, if the nanny is available and willing to work, and the family chooses not to use her services or their services, for gender neutral language, the nanny will be paid anyway. I put it, my caveat is two things. I say within the typical schedule, which is what 99.9% nannies want the families to know. So those guaranteed hours are within the typical schedule. So you can't be like, oh, you're going to work on Saturday night. That doesn't work for nannies. And I will say that you need to pay as if the hours were worked, because there's nothing worse than a nanny getting cheated out of overtime. That drives me a little crazy. So you want to put those caveats on there, but you need to talk to families about how it's going to work, because a lot of families are really surprised. Like, oh, wait a second, I gave my nanny Monday and Tuesday off, but now I need her to work on Saturday night and she's charging me for it. Well, yeah, because Monday and Tuesday were guaranteed hours. That's not her typical schedule on Saturdays, so she's going to charge. So make sure that you're really explaining those nuances. And I have a whole ebook, honestly, on guaranteed hours. That's how many questions there were. It's like 14 pages. So I'll post the ebook on my Nanny Care Hub site and read it. And you'll be amazed at how many questions there are around such a simple topic. Who are good with doing I think it said housework. Go back to that.
Okay, Laura, here we have another question.
Yeah. Nannies who are good with doing household chores as well. Okay. Well, it depends on, so household chores, like loading the dishwasher. Yes. Wiping down counters. Well, they're going to wipe down the counters after they feed the kids. Groceries is outside the nanny realm, but lots and lots of nannies do. So what I say to family is there's a continuum between nanny and family assistant. And most people are going to fall in the middle. So if you're asking your nanny to do a couple of additional tasks like grocery shopping or family laundry, they're going to look for an increase in wages, but most of them are willing to do it if you put it in the contract and if you increase their wage to reflect that. And honestly, most nannies are. There's this whole group of very vocal, very adamant nannies, but there are a minority that aren't willing to do anything. The majority of nannies, and believe me, I talk to them, especially behind the scenes, are willing to do stuff like that. They just need to be recognized that this is outside the nanny, job description, and they need to be paid. And they don't need to be paid $5 more. You can increase it 50 cents or 75 cents or whatever. But they do need to be paid more for those things. And if you want a lot of it, then you need to move to family assisting. So just push them in that direction.
Okay, Laura. So there's another one. let's answer this last one. And
Okay.
so
Poor Daniel's like,
yeah,
what's the question?
it's
It didn't pop up for me.
do you want me to read it for you, or
Yeah, let me see if I can grab it.
it's from Allison?
Okay, hold on.
Does anyone else have?
Yes. The issue of nannies not feeling comfortable sharing private information during the application process, such as references or uploading driver's license. Yes. That should maybe be asked for later in the process. Standard procedure privacy in applications. Oh, I hear that complaint all the time. And why is this agency asking me for this? So first off, if they're not feeling comfortable, then you might want to spend more time developing the trusting relationship, because most of the time that's a trust issue. For references, that's definitely a trust issue, because nannies have been burned by agencies who will call their references and say, I'm calling for a reference on so-and-so, and the family has no idea the nanny's getting ready to quit. So you have to be, again, you have to assure that nanny that you take it very, very seriously, and the references would be kept private and confidential until they are ready to tell the references, especially the current one. So ask them, which of these are any of these references you're currently working for? Which ones can I contact? So again, bringing them into the process will solve that problem. As far as uploading stuff, people are really paranoid about identity theft. And so that is the whole thing about, I don't know that I would upload my driver's license. That just kind of yicks me out. So if it's not something that you would do, so if I called you and said, hey, copy your driver's license and upload it or email it to me, if you wouldn't feel fully comfortable, then don't ask the nanny to do that. That's what I would say. Find other ways. So have her drop it off at your office, even if it's not a full application or interview that you're doing, have her drop it off, or, get onto Zoom and have her show it to you so you can match the picture or whatever you need to do. But I understand why nannies would not want to send things through email, because there's no security on that, and identity theft is a real thing. But Daniel, you might have a solution to that with the whole engine hire thing. I don't know.
Yeah, of
I'm
course.
gonna put him on the spot. He's like, I'm not ready for that question.
No, of course. Like as I said before, I think that a lot of things that you said during the webinar, we can help you with Andy Hire. So
Yes.
yeah, feel free to
Okay.
I don't know, send us an email, or so we can help you with if you have any questions or you want to book a demo with us.
So she's asking how, yeah, so there you are. So you just need to talk to him about how safe that is and how they protect that information. I won't even put my bank stuff on my phone, right? I mean, I do it on my desktop, but I won't even put it on my phone. So I think everybody, not just nannies, are paranoid, but it's a balancing of the needs. And let them know, the other thing is let them know what you're using it for, because nannies have no idea why you want that information and why you want it now. So again, next steps. We need this information, and this is how we're going to use it. This is how we're going to protect it. So let them know.
Okay, yeah. Let me see if Akash is there to see if he can answer to that question more specifically about that. But Akash, are you there?
Did he bail on us?
But Alejandra, if you want, I can tell him to reply to that question for you if later. Okay. Does anyone have any other question? We can answer the last one, and I don't know if you have a little more time, Laura. I don't want to
No, I'm fine.
take much more of your time, but let's see if someone has another question. Okay, I think that's no for the moment.
Right.
So Laura, thank you a lot for this amazing webinar. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure to have you here, and thank you all for coming. Again, if there's something we can help you with at Andy Hire, feel free to send us an email. And we're gonna send the recording of this webinar in an email with also a survey, so you can tell us how if you like the webinar. And also really important, in the survey, we'll be asking what kind of content or what kind of like webinars will you like to have in the future. We want to continue doing this webinar, so it's really important for us to hear your feedback of what kind of things will you like to know, or with what kind of problems are you having in your agencies, because again, we want to continue offering these webinars to help you grow and make all your agencies better and bigger every day. So thank you again for coming, and see you
Thanks,
at the next
everybody.
webinar. Bye, Laura.
Bye.
Bye.